If you've ever looked into breeding a mono shrimp, you've probably been told three things. This is really hard to do. You need some sort of laboratory setup, and a mono shrimp only come in one color. Now, the gurus here are wrong. Most of the Amano shrimp breeding videos and even the Amano shrimp general care type videos that you come across on YouTube are from creators that just got Amano shrimp. Or maybe they've owned Amano shrimp for a while, but they have never actually bred Amano shrimp. So today, I'm not just showing you how to bypass the myths and bad advice. I'm showing you the results of projects that, according to the experts, shouldn't even exist. Now, let's take a look here at this shrimp. This is a home-bred lemon yellow Amano shrimp. And at the current time, I am the only creator on YouTube that is breeding lemon yellow Amano shrimp. They've only been available in the hobby for a short time. And I hope that you'll join me in breeding colorful Amano shrimp just like this. Because if you check out my channel, I show you low tech, easy, beginner friendly methods to breed colorful Amano shrimp just like this using regular home aquariums without a bunch of elbow grease or expensive equipment. So, for a long time, the Amano shrimp breeding process has been shrouded in mystery. And the polls that I have given my viewers have told me that acclimating the baby Amano shrimp larvae, the tiny little babies when they're born in your freshwater aquarium, is the most intimidating part of breeding Amano shrimp for these average fish keepers. Even advanced shrimp keepers that are used to cherry shrimp, Caridina shrimp, even Caridina shrimp are often too intimidated to mess with breeding Amano shrimp because of how complicated the hobby has made it sound. And a lot of this overcomplication and myths stem from acclimating these shrimp when they're first born into a saltwater grow out tank. That's really the first misconception that gets repeated over and over and over on social media like YouTube. Creators that have never actually tried breeding a mono shrimp simply repeat whatever the video they watched before creating their own video said. What I mean by that is we have creators for years now that have simply added a little part of their Amano shrimp video that says breeding them is incredibly difficult and requires brackish water. Well, that's the first misconception. When you breed them, they breed on their own. Simply owning a mono shrimp will get you to this point, which is a pregnant female Amano shrimp with hundreds and hundreds, sometimes thousands of eggs under her tail. We'll take a closer look here as these baby Amano shrimp, before they're born, they develop under the shrimp's tail in her swimmerets. And if you look closely, you can actually see little eyeballs there in those eggs because they're almost ready to hatch. It's an amazing process, but again, it's automatic. The shrimp breed all on their own. And for most people that keep Amano shrimp simply for algae control, as they're known as the kings of the cleanup crew for algae control, they will see a pregnant Amano shrimp, and a lot of times they'll never actually see the larva once they're born because they get eaten up by their community fish that are often kept in community tanks with Amano shrimp. For those fish keepers that do have Amano shrimp only tanks, or maybe they've separated out that female Amano shrimp, when you go to search for what to do next, you're met with just a ton of videos that pretty much say the same thing. And most of the creators of those videos, again, do not breed Amano shrimp. They have no actual real world experience with breeding these shrimp and raising the babies more directly. And so, what the shrimp keeper ends up finding in their research is a bunch of myths and misconceptions. So, on my channel, I hope to kind of break the mold of repeating the same information over and over again. That's just simply not true. And what we do here on this channel is we use extremely easy, low tech methods to raise the baby Amano shrimp. The things that I'm doing have never before been done with Amano shrimp, but they're very common when it comes to breeding nano fish, really tiny fish that are too small even as babies to eat baby brine shrimp. I'm using the same type methods. And so by breeding little nano fish, I've been able to use that experience to kind of figure out my own path for raising a mono shrimp larva that is much different than the microscopes and the phytoplankton and the rotifers and the advanced biology degrees that people think they need to have to raise the baby shrimp. So, you know, some of it can be considered gatekeeping, but really what it comes down to is it's not these creators' fault. They're simply uneducated on how to really do it as far as real world experience. So they're doing just like all of us do. They go to YouTube and they just type in how to breed a mono shrimp. And usually what you come up with are these guru style channels that constantly produce videos on basic shrimp care, warning you that if you do this, you'll unalive all your shrimp. Or if you do this, you'll breed 1,000 times more shrimp. Or you're not feeding your shrimp enough. Or you're feeding your shrimp too much. It's all really kind of old at this point. And I think a lot of us in the hobby have kind of grown to dismiss those type of videos up front. The tactic has been used for a few years now. And just like, an ad when you're scrolling, you eventually kind of develop these habits of just disregarding that kind of stuff. But for new shrimp keepers that are looking for the keys to success, those type of videos can be incredibly enticing. And generally, what I've found is that those guru shrimp keeping creators typically only devote a few videos to a mono shrimp because in their world, there's really not a lot to say about a mono shrimp because they're not breeding them. A lot of these creators don't even own these colorful Amano shrimp, and the ones that do hardly make videos about them because, again, what else can you say other than the exact same thing you said in your last video and the exact same thing that's in all the other videos, which they start out and they say, Amano shrimp are the kings of the algae eating world. And then they tell you the basic care sheet info, and then they tell you breeding's really hard and they leave. So I'm really hoping to kind of get through that myth and repetitive nature that has kind of controlled the Amano shrimp part of the shrimp keeping niche now for years on social media. And the main way that I'm doing that is showing you the results. I'm showing you the actual physical evidence of example here, pregnant lemon yellow Amano shrimp. And this in and of itself is a sight to behold because you're not going to find many people on the planet that even own lemon yellow amano shrimp because they're so incredibly scarce because not many people are breeding them. So, over the next few years, as we're now into 2026 and beyond, what you're going to see is more and more shrimp keepers that come across videos just like mine that show these beautiful amano shrimp in these colors and raising the baby larva using methods that are not intimidating, that anyone can do, that are beginner friendly. And as more and more people start breeding them, as an example in the United States, these colors are going to become more and more common. And we're hopefully going to get to a point sooner than later that these beautiful colors of Amano shrimp become widely available to where you'll be able to go into your local pet store or even a big box store like Petco or PetSmart and see colorful Amano shrimp alongside the cherry shrimp. So let's talk about the first myth here, the secret salinity formula. Again, this is the most intimidating part according to polls that I've given to my viewers. A lot of them say that the mixture of the salt water is just too much. It sounds too complicated. It's not like anything that they're currently doing with their freshwater pet shrimp. And they're just not willing to get involved into a project that seems like it's so complicated. Well, I'm here to tell you to raise the baby larva, you do indeed need a saltwater setup. It's not advanced, it's not complicated. You just go to the pet store and buy a bag of marine aquarium salt. It needs to be salt that is marine salt, not the kind of salt that you would typically use for live bearers' health, like guppies or platies, or to cure some diseases in freshwater fish or shrimp. You're going to use actual marine aquarium salt for a saltwater aquarium. You look on the back of the bag, it's going to tell you how to mix it up for the most popular salinity level for saltwater aquariums, and that's what you're going to do. You get a measuring cup, you measure out the salt, you mix it with some RO water, and let it sit for a day or two before you put it into your container or aquarium that you're going to use to raise the baby Amano shrimp. It's unbelievably uncomplicated. And if more creators knew this, I think the mantra that's used over and over again in these Amano shrimp care guide videos would completely change. And instead of them referring to breeding Amano shrimp as complicated, what they would say is the truth. And that is breeding Amano shrimp is automatic. If you own male and female Amano shrimp, they're going to breed all on their own. Raising the baby larva requires a simple container of salt water. That's it. Mixed to the instructions on the bag of aquarium salt. So very, very easy stuff. Now, myth number 2 that we're going to discuss here is phytoplankton. And that is another way that the hobby has kind of convinced itself that breeding a mono shrimp is complicated. Phytoplankton is a type of green water for saltwater aquariums. And in order to use phytoplankton to feed the baby larva, you have to set up a phytoplankton culture. That in and of itself is an entire project. It is complicated. You will have failure. Your phytoplankton will probably crash. You may have to buy a starter culture of phytoplankton more than once. Phytoplankton requires its own setup. So now on top of setting up a culture for phytoplankton, you've got a separate new setup for the baby Amano shrimp larva. And get this, if you don't raise rotifers, which are little tiny microscopic organisms that eat the phytoplankton, what will happen is that saltwater phytoplankton, the green water, will get so dense and so thick and dark green that you won't be able to see your Amano shrimp larva anymore. So you won't be able to check on them. You won't be able to look in and tell if they're healthy or not, or if they're even still swimming around, because your baby grow out tank full of salt water will be completely solid green. So in order to use phytoplankton, now you have to set up a third aquarium to culture rotifers. And the method that I use to raise baby amano shrimp does not use phytoplankton. It does not use rotifers. It actually uses a small, tiny organism that you don't even have to buy. It's already naturally present in all of our aquariums. So if you're watching this and you have a freshwater aquarium, you already have baby amano shrimp food. If you're watching this and you have a saltwater aquarium, you already have baby amano shrimp food. So I'll show you what I mean here. I'm going to turn off the lights here to this aquarium. And then what I'm going to do is shine a flashlight in. And what you'll see when I shine this flashlight in, let me get the focus right, are all of those little tiny dots. See those little tiny dots? See those little tiny dots floating around? If you own a freshwater shrimp tank, you've got this. You have a snail tank, you already have this. This is called Paramecium. And Paramecium are just little tiny single-celled organisms that eat bacteria. That's it. It's that simple. So you don't have to culture this. You don't have to buy this. It naturally appears in our aquarium to eat the bacteria that also naturally appears. And this is something that none of those guru creators talk about because they've never bred amano shrimp. They've never tried raising baby amano shrimp. Now, how to culture that infusoria called Paramecium is very, very easy to do. The easiest way I've found to do it is by feeding a powdered food. And I have my own special kind of recipe that I use for powdered baby amano shrimp larva food. And the baby amano shrimp are able to eat it. They're filter feeders. And being that the food is powdered, they're able, it's small enough that they're able to consume it. But what that powder also does is the uneaten amount of it that remains in the aquarium gets broken down by bacteria. And that bacteria, in turn, is eaten by Paramecium. And Paramecium just kind of appears almost like from dust in the air. It's naturally present in our aquariums. So it's the easiest thing in the world. It might sound kind of complicated, but even the way I'm explaining it is far less complicated than any of the shrimp guru channels will leave you to believe. So that's the second myth, is that you need a expensive phytoplankton and rotifer setup that's really complicated. And they may even tell you that you need microscopes and stuff. Guys, if it was that difficult, I simply would not do it, right? And again, that's why not a lot of people are breeding amano shrimp. So the next thing we'll talk about is colors. There's still a lot of people that are skeptical that amano shrimp actually come in colors because they've never seen them in person. Now, obviously, once they see a video like this where it shows a bright yellow amano shrimp close up, you can't deny that they exist in colors. But believe it or not, I've actually had some people in real life who were skeptical that amano shrimp come in beautiful colors when I first tell them about it, because it's something that they've never seen. The local pet store is not able to order colorful amano shrimp. They've never seen them for sale in real life. And so I'm hoping to change that by simply demonstrating how we are raising the amano shrimp larva using low tech and low effort setups. So when your amano shrimp releases all of those baby larvae, all you have to do is catch them out, which I've got videos on my channel that show how to catch them the easiest way. You just use a flashlight. They're attracted to the light. You can suck them out with a turkey baster and transfer them. I like to use a disposable K-cup, and I clamp it to the top of the aquarium and kind of trap them in there. That way I don't have to transfer a bunch of water over. But you just catch them and you move them to that saltwater grow out tank. That's it. It's not a complicated process. It doesn't require drip acclimatization or any other of the labor intensive methods. You just literally take them directly from the freshwater and move them right over to the saltwater. It couldn't be easier. So let me show you here my current Amano shrimp grow out tank as it sits. Now the glass on this thing is pretty dirty today, so I have to get around to cleaning it. But I didn't clean it before starting this video because I wanted to show you just how low effort it is. You can see a clear separation here between this bottom area here that's obviously got a ton of algae on it, and then this top section here which doesn't have any algae. And that's simply because when I started out this batch of baby Amano shrimp that you see swimming around in here, I only had this aquarium filled up to that line that you see. It was only filled up to here. So since I've started this particular batch, I've added some more salt water to it. But this is as easy as it gets. And technically this setup is one step more complicated than I would normally use. And that's simply because I added this air stone that you'll see in the back. That's it. You don't even need to run an air stone, but I'm doing it as kind of an experiment to see if it cuts down on the amount of algae that's growing on the surface of the water here. I found that when I go to harvest out the baby Amano shrimp, I end up transferring this algae from tank to tank and things like that. So I'm just kind of trying to cut down on it, which it has cut down on it. It's still growing algae at the top of the aquarium, as you can see, but it's at least growing less algae than it used to with no air stone. So even though this tank's pretty dirty, we can still see through here, and you can clearly see those Amano shrimp larvae swimming around. They look just like little strange wiggly lines. They don't really look like shrimp yet. And these are actually yellow Amano shrimp larvae. I am the only channel on YouTube showing yellow Amano shrimp larvae, but I hope that it's not for long. I hope that more enthusiasts, hobbyists, even just general pet shrimp owners will join me in raising these baby Amano shrimp. Because again, if you own Amano shrimp, they're going to automatically breed in your home aquarium. You're not going to be able to stop that. If you have both male and female Amano shrimp, they're going to do the deed all on their own. And you're going to find yourself with pregnant Amano shrimp. So at that point, you can definitely feed the babies to your fish. If you've got them in a community aquarium, your fish are going to take care of that on their own. Or if you want to try the challenge of a no-tech or even low-tech Amano shrimp larva grow out, check out my channel because I pretty much catalog exactly how I do it. I show you all the tips and tricks of raising these babies. And if you haven't noticed yet, in these small little aquariums, yes, these are nano tanks, guys and gals. This is just a 2.5 gallon nano tank. This is the inexpensive $12 aquarium when it's on sale. And I've got these set up pretty much as simply as it can get. I grow little moss domes in here. Some of them have moss in them. Some of them have Susswassertang in them. I've got some of them with pearlweed in them. And then I have some sponge filters in here that are growing amazing amounts of pearlweed right through the sponge. And I don't ever clean the sponge. I don't have it hooked up to any air. It's just in there, just like these moss domes, as a place to grow plants. Now, these moss domes are fairly new. That's why they're not looking like chia pets yet. But as you can see, like in this particular tank here, this one's been in here for a couple weeks and that moss is really starting to grow out. The same with these here. The moss really starts to grow out rather quickly. And once the moss kind of turns into a full bush, I just trim it, and then you can sell those trimmings or trade them off. So on top of these little 2.5 gallon aquariums, just holding 5 adult Amano shrimp each. And from that, I'm able to get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of baby Amano shrimp, which with each female, sometimes over 1,000 of the larva. Not only am I able to do that, but I'm able to grow a ton of plants without really doing anything. I mean, this is basic level stuff. Those guru channels, for whatever reason, I think it's just out of survival at this point. They have to pretty much make everything as complicated as possible. And I'm the opposite. I try to do things in a way that's the least amount of effort possible. Because in America, most Americans are not exactly sold on the high maintenance, high tech setups. Americans want, from my research, they do want the beautiful look of a planted aquarium, but they want to get there with automation and with methods that do not require a ton of money and a ton of work. And so showcasing something as simple as growing pearlweed without needing to do a bunch of extra stuff, without needing some crazy substrate that has a 2-hour explanation of how it works. No, these are water plants. They use nutrients from the water. And Amano shrimp, they're just like cherry shrimp. They breed automatically. There's one extra step required by the fish keeper, or shrimp keeper in this case, and that's to simply move the larva over to those saltwater grow out tanks for the baby Amano shrimp. That's it. Other than that, it's just as easy as raising baby cherry shrimp, which you typically also want to feed with a powdered food so that it gets food all around the aquarium. And you'll notice in here as well, I even have little cherry shrimp as tank mates. These are Caridina shrimp. They're orange eye blue dream shrimp, and they breed all on their own as well. Now, these are babies I've got behind here. Behind this tank is a 20-gallon, and I've got a ton of the Caridina shrimp in there. But I have these little 2.5 gallons because it's easy. It's very, very easy. Now, those same gurus will tell you that tiny tanks are harder. They have wild temperature swings, which I don't understand how that's possible unless the room they're in has wild temperature swings, but we won't get into that. They'll tell you that they have wild parameter swings and that a smaller tank is actually harder to maintain than a bigger tank. I maintain all my tanks the same way. It's all relative. So I think that raising baby Amano shrimp is incredibly easy to do. The biggest myth of all is that you've got to be an experienced or advanced aquarist to breed Amano shrimp. You don't. You just need the right information. So I'm currently documenting these breeding projects here in the different colors. I'm really working closely with the Lemon Amano shrimp to try to produce a new color. Now, my experience as a breeder tells me that these Lemon Yellow Amano shrimp are basically a leak of color on top of what's called a Leucistic mutation. So that's basically a black eye albino that has some color that's leaked out. So it's a mutation on top of a mutation. And what my experience tells me is that these Lemon Amano shrimp are the best path if you're looking to breed shrimp to get to a new color. Now, these Sun Orange Amano shrimp that you see here, they have the same wild type dots and dashes that you'll see on a regular Amano shrimp. They've just been bred for kind of a color, not necessarily a mutation. And then these, the Snow Amano shrimp, this is a Leucistic mutation, meaning that it has no color and no pattern. So these had to come first. These were bred together over and over again until eventually some color leaked through. And that was the yellow that we see here. And by breeding these yellow together, eventually we should start to see a green mutation or a solid blue mutation or maybe a solid red mutation. So the only way to get there is to actually raise the larva. The shrimp breed all on their own. So I'm hoping that you'll join me with these low-tech methods breeding these colorful Amano shrimps so that we can develop a brand new color of Amano shrimp. I don't think I can do it on my own. I'm going to try either way, but if you can help me, I think we'll find that path to the next color Amano shrimp better and faster together. So as always, I appreciate you checking out the video. Make sure you go to my channel and look at the playlist on my channel page. I've got a lot of really good information there on breeding these shrimp and raising the babies. So don't miss out. Make sure you subscribe and like this video, and we'll see you next time.